Welcome in, guys. I'm James Haskell. This is my co-host, Glenn Martin, and you are watching another video from 410 Sports Talk. We're really excited to talk about the most recent moves when it comes to the NFL free agency. This whole free agency period has been action-packed, and even though the big names are starting to cycle out, there's still a lot of them out there and still a lot of them getting deals. So we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about the guys that were most recently signed. Glenn, there's a couple big names that I know we recently saw come off the board. Who do you got for me?
Well, it seems that the Houston Texans have cured their woes at receiver after they made the most boneheaded trade I've seen in quite some time and getting rid of Hopkins by signing former Green Bay Packer and Cowboys receiver Randall Cobb to a 3-year, $27 million deal that includes $18.5 guaranteed. So they're good, right, Jimbo?
Oh, yeah. All problem solved.
I mean, you trade away a top 3 wide receiver, but that's fine because you got Randall Cobb. I mean –
Hey. And I tell you what, I don't know. And he got a pay raise. He's got to be happy. I mean, he's going to a team that's perpetual mediocrity. But, I mean, you get to play with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, he's coming from a team just like that in the Cowboys, so it shouldn't be much different. But, I mean, the only good thing is, I mean, he should get a ton of targets with the absence of Hopkins, a lot of opportunity. But, yeah, I mean, I guess they had to do something. They need to replace that incredible production Hopkins is taking out the door with them with someone.
Well, I think that O'Brien was worried about his house getting egged, and it definitely isn't getting TP'd based on the times.
That's true. You can't waste that golden resource that is toilet paper.
No.
But yeah, that one's kind of a head scratcher. But the next one I have on the list I think is a good pickup, and that is Emmanuel Sanders going to the Saints on a 2-year, $16 million deal with a max of 19 with incentives. So what's your thoughts on Emmanuel?
At first, I thought, man, if I'm him, I don't know if I'm going to the same division as Tom Brady. But
disrespectful to the NFL passing leader of all time.
I know, but it's TB12 we're talking about here. But at the same time, we had this conversation off air, and I do believe I think that Drew Brees went to the front office of the Saints and was like, look, we need to do something here. It's about to get real. I ain't playing Jameis Winston 2 times a year anymore. Let's see what we can do to kind of match wits here. And, I don't think it was a bad pickup for them. He's tough. He's experienced. He's a vet. He's a clutch player. I think they got him at a good deal. I think he's happy with what he's getting paid. It's $19 million in total with incentives. So I think it's a win-win for both. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great pickup. I think you look at on the other side, being opposite a guy like Michael Thomas, who is, again, another guy that we consider certainly in the top 3 of receivers, no matter what list you look at. And I think when you have him on one side, you got Jared Cook, who had a breakout year as a proven threat over the middle at tight end. And you got Kamara in the backfield, who's, another top at his position, top 3, top 5 at his position. So, and they still have a pretty stout offensive line going in front of Drew Brees. And then, of course, the Swiss Army knife that is Taysom Hill. So I think he's just an added weapon to that offense that makes you wonder if you can double Michael Thomas on every play like we've seen him, and he's still productive. So if you can imagine, Emmanuel Sanders is going to be seeing nothing but single coverage all year. The coverage is going to be rolled away from him. And then, of course, the defenders still have to worry about Jared Cook over the middle. So I think this is a great signing by the Saints and also a great deal for Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, and we'll stay right with the Saints. On the other side of the ball, Sean Payton expressed that one of the biggest regrets of his career was letting Malcolm Jenkins walk when he went to the Eagles. And so now that the Eagles and him have mutually agreed to part ways, he has re-signed with the Saints on a 4-year, $32 million deal. I like that reunion. I think it makes sense for them, solidifies their back end from a leadership perspective and production. I mean, he's not a bad player. While he's a little long in the tooth, guy can still play, that's for sure. And so, once again, I feel like it's a win-win. The Saints got a lot more dangerous with these 2 pickups. What do you think?
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I think that that secondary, when you look, you just mentioned with Tom Brady going to the Bucs and that ridiculous receiving core that they have there, you're going to need all the help you can get in the back end. And a guy like Jenkins not only brings it on the field, but as you mentioned in the locker room as well, one of the best safeties out there and certainly one of the best leaders and examples to have in your locker room. Doesn't get much better than that, and they got some youth on the outside, and I'm sure he'll help make everyone better, and that's what you really need on that back end is a guy that can lift the play of everyone else, and I think Jenkins does that. So two really nice pickups for the Saints to make an already really good team even better.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If I can go off the beaten path a little bit here. Do you remember when Malcolm Jenkins popped Gronkowski in the Super Bowl?
Not offhand, no.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was out the rest of that game, wasn't he?
I don't remember it offhand.
I'm pretty sure that. So when the Eagles won the Super Bowl against the Patriots,
the Philly special game, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the first half, second quarter, and he came. He delivered the wood on friggin' Gronkowski, and I'm pretty sure he's out the rest of the game. I mean, it changed that game completely. You lose a guy like Gronkowski, even if it's for a half or a quarter. That's a huge difference. That I'll never forget about Malcolm Jenkins, solely on that play. But great leader. So the other one I wanted to mention was Eric Ebron coming to the NFC North. And I tell you what, Eric Ebron, you're going to Steel City. Good luck to you with a 38 million-year-old quarterback. And he's probably weighs more than you right now, Eric Ebron.
Oh, hey, look, he just got reports. He's throwing pain-free.
Whoop-de-doo.
So watch out. Hey, I'm not going to sleep on Big Ben.
Move the beer belly throw.
Oh, my gosh.
What are you doing here, Ben? Come on.
Hey, I think that's a heck of a pickup for them. I think, Big Ben has shown his love of throwing to the tight end, and Eric Ebron is a heck of an athlete, a great pass catcher, and certainly a threat over the middle. I think they got him for 2 years, $12 million. That's a pretty good deal for a guy who made the Pro Bowl in 2018 with the Colts.
Now, the only thing I'll say, though, if this were a number of years ago now, man, how time flies. The AFC North is traditionally a really tough, defensive-minded division. I don't know how tough Eric Ebron is.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily fit into the smash mouth part of it, but certainly a heck of a pass catcher. But I tell you what, Eric, you better pack your lunch. You better pack your lunch coming to the AFC North.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you better be able to block. You can't just be out there running. Well, I mean, look, Mark Andrews might not be the best blocker, but he's a willing blocker, okay? So he puts his body in there, gets in the way, and as long as Ebron can do that, I think he'll be okay. And I think this is, unfortunately, a good pickup for the Steelers. And if Big Ben can return to anywhere close to his old form, it could be interesting to see. I mean, we saw what the Browns have been doing this offseason. They're certainly surrounding Baker with as many weapons and protection with the pickup of Conklin that they can. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. The other thing I'll say too about that is you talked about Andrews. I could be totally wrong, and people might correct me here in the comments, but while Andrews is not the best blocker, I think sometimes people forget how big he is, just as a human, as a tight end. He's like, I watched. This is due to coronavirus on NFL Network. They have a ton of old games and things like that. I was on my Apple TV and I watched the divisional game against the Ravens and the Broncos.
Yeah,
the Maha Miracle. Mm-hmm. First of all, we had a lot of guys that were problems.
Yeah,
Kruger was balling that year.
Made his money that year, yep.
He's a whiz. But there were a multitude of other guys.
On defense.
Do you remember that third down catch over the middle up the seam? Dennis Pitta, we were on our own like 5 or 3. Now, we punted after that, but that was a huge play.
Yeah, for field position. No, you're right. I think
wow.
That was.
But when you watch Dennis move, and then when you watch Mark move, they move so similarly, but Dennis is so much smaller.
Yeah. It's
incredible to me.
Yeah, that's what makes Andrew such a problem, is that he's quick, he's fast, he gets separation, and oh, by the way, he's gigantic.
He's like 275 or something.
Yeah, no doubt. So yeah, he's a problem. But Eric Ebron's a heck of an athlete too, at a pretty good size. So
that's true.
Yeah, he's no joke. But did you want to get into some of the remaining free agents? And
let's do that. Let's talk about some guys that we think are off the radar here, at least as far as NFL front offices are going, and who's still out there. We got a list in front of us that we've been able to come across, and we kind of want to run through it. So why don't you start us off there, Glenn?
Okay, so we all know about the big fish still out there with Jadeveon Clowney. And of course, the other, the only quarterback of mention left still out there is, last year's passing yard leader, Jameis Winston, who, by the way, has already predicted a Super Bowl run, despite the fact that he doesn't know what team he'll be on, which I find hilarious. But yeah, other than those guys, there's a couple guys out there interesting. Everson Griffin, the edge rusher out of Minnesota, who's had a heck of a career for Minnesota. Basically just made it clear that he won't be back after the team looks like they're going to try I don't know if they have, or they're going to try to re-sign Danielle Hunter, a heck of a pass rusher out of LSU a couple years back.
Yeah.
Looks like they're going to kind of hitch their wagon to him and move on from a guy like Everson Griffin, who's been so productive. I'm not sure really his fit with the Ravens after, their recent acquisitions, but certainly a guy that can still get it done at still. He's only 32 years old, so he's getting up there, but not to the point where you think his production is just going to fall off a cliff. But certainly a guy who can add some value to a team that thinks they're close.
Yeah, I wonder how much his per year and guaranteed money, how much more his commitment will have to be financially than a guy like Clay Matthews. Like, yeah. I wonder what that space would be like. And honestly, I don't know who I'd rather have. I think I would take Griffin. Clay Matthews is a heck of a player. But I think that they're probably going to be similarly priced.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because you just don't know who is bidding against each other or what the market is. But I would say for the Ravens, in my opinion, the fit is clearly better for Clay Matthews.
Yeah.
Just because of the recent acquisitions. We don't really need another defensive lineman. But Griffin does provide pass rush, and we've been saying if they were to move on from Judon, then I would certainly say that Everson Griffin would be a heck of a pickup if Judon is gone and they don't have any other options. But another guy I wanted to talk about from on the defensive side is cornerback Logan Ryan, who we last saw. At least my last memory of him will be him intercepting. I'm not going to talk about what he did the next round, but he intercepted Tom Brady and did a pick six for his last throw. Tom Brady's last throw as a Patriot.
Yep.
So I'll never forget that. I don't know how much he's got left. He's only 29 years old, and a guy that's certainly susceptible to give up some big plays, but also can get his hand on a ball or two and maybe take it the other way. Do you have any interest in the Ravens bringing him in, or do you have any thoughts on where he might end up?
Yeah, I don't. So if we were bringing another corner, I think I would rather bring in Jimmy, retain Jimmy, if you will, yep. Jimmy Smith, that is, instead of bringing a guy from the outside. I don't know, based on his versatility, while Logan Ryan is good, I would almost value based on the fact that Brandon Carr is a known commodity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Brandon's older, but he's more versatile. So I don't even know if I would take him over Brandon. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean specifically in the Ravens case.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know where he's going to end up. I really have no idea. I think it's interesting, though. It's always interesting when your team lets you hang out there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It
says something about
me. They don't like you that much,
Yeah, or you're injury-riddled, old something.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, let me ask you about another guy, a big name, but I haven't been hearing about him in the national media, is Ndamukong Suh. He played for Tampa Bay last year, a guy they brought in to try and replace what's his name, the D lineman that we thought we were going to get.
Gerald McCoy.
Yeah, Gerald McCoy, I think signed with the Cowboys a couple days ago.
Yeah. Good luck, buddy.
I didn't really hear much of Ndamukong this year. He's 33 years old, so he's getting up there, but certainly once was one of the most dominant players in the NFL. Do you think he's got anything left?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's an incredible athlete. So I think he's got some stuff left in the tank. It's funny because I could see him going back to Miami, man. As crazy as that sounds.
Yeah,
remember
he gobbled up a lot of guys.
Yeah, and he signed that huge deal with Miami. You remember that back in the day? That was Albert Hainsworth-esque. Not, in number and not, I mean, obviously he produced more than Albert, but similar. But I could see him making his way back around. So I don't know. I think he's got another year or two. I don't think he wants to hang it up. But you said that there's only one quarterback of mention left on this list. I would beg to differ.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
who you looking at?
Oh, Joe Flacco.
Oh, okay. Well, I meant from a starter standpoint.
I meant from a starter standpoint too. All
I
right,
love
look, I was watching that divisional game, like I was saying. First of all, Joe was a lot skinnier at 28 than 34.
Yeah, well, a back injury will do that with your working out being a little bit limited.
Man, but dude, he can throw. I mean, he throws some ropes,
Look, that was a long time ago, Jimbo. A
some
long
lasers
time ago.
though. Like now I get it. I get it.
Hold on. Now you get it?
Yes, I'm looking back, but at the same time, I'm watching some of these 3-and-outs in this divisional game and a 3-and-out in a minute 40, and I'm like, dude, this would never happen with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and he's 35, and that was a long time ago. So, look, I'm not going to let us get bogged down with Joe Flacco talk. I want to talk about one guy.
Hold on, before you do that, though, I'm telling you right now.
All right, here we go.
I'm telling you right now, Joe is going to go, and I think they should have signed him last year. I think he could end up in Jacksonville.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that they will give him a shot to compete.
With Gardner?
Yes. I think they'll give him a shot to compete. And I think Joe thinks he can outplay him.
That's a strong mustache he's going to have to go up against.
Well, Joe's got a serious neck beard, so. Anyway, no more, but I can see that. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Well, how about this guy? This is an interesting guy from the standpoint of size and youth and all that, but not necessarily production lately is Devin Funchess. He's only 26 years old. He's a big guy. We saw he was with the
Panthers, right?
Panthers for all them years, and then he butted heads with Cam Newton and was kind of forced out of the door. And then he went to Buffalo, and I think last year he was with Indy. Any thoughts on him? You know, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Anything? Do you like anything about him?
I'll give you 2 words: Eddie Lacy.
Yeah, that's who you like. Why him? 2 different
because
positions.
Eddie Lacy was too fat for his position.
Yeah, he's a big guy. 6'4", 225 is what he's listed at. I think he's more like 240.
Him and Kelvin Benjamin, they've just ate themselves out of playing wide receiver.
It's just weird because a couple years ago, you know, not too long ago, he had 840 yards for Carolina and was a big-time threat.
Yeah, you just can't go 90 or 100 miles an hour on every single route when you're carrying that much weight. We don't see. I mean, DK Metcalf is like weight-wise, he's carrying weight, but his body fat is very low.
Yeah.
Different, right? But you can't carry that mass and play wide receiver.
No, you can't do it. Yeah. No, I agree. I just thought he's an interesting name because of his youth. You know, he's still a young guy. He's a guy that maybe you could have hope. He's only 26. Maybe hope if he gets around the right leadership, they could change him, you know, turn him around. But yeah, well, what about another young guy? Would you like to see him bring back a familiar face in Rashad Perryman? 26 years old, had a breakout year last year. No?
I'll tell you what, man. You said this a couple shows ago, and I'm stuck on this guy's name now. While he's short and similar, I like that Phillip Dorsett, that match. I like that. And I also like another name I'll bring up is Taylor Gabriel from the Bears. I feel like the guy doesn't always put up the most stats, but for some reason, I feel like every time they're on national television, he balls out.
Yeah, he makes big time catches. I think everybody always points to, you know, we already have a guy like that, but I think you mentioned it. It's important to have more than one guy that can do that. Of course, I wouldn't consider Gabriel. I mean, I don't know. Would you consider Gabriel a big play threat or more of a possession?
No, so that's the thing is I think that there's a little bit of a mix, and I think that people tend to put him in the same bucket because they have a similar body type and things like that. I don't think he has the top-end speed or the tracking ability, the big game or the big play knack that a Deshaun Jackson and a Hollywood Brown, those guys have, those type of players have. But, so I see him, while there's some overlap between the two, I totally can see us utilizing him in that slot. Along with Willie on the inside, along with Mark, of course. But the more options we give Lamar in the slot, the better. And not necessarily just in the slot, but inside the numbers.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they like to run Mark Andrews a lot over the middle. but certainly wouldn't mind having some versatility. You mentioned the guy I like that I haven't been really hearing anyone connected to Philip Dorsett. He's still young. He's a burner, and yeah, I'd like him, but I'm not gonna rehash that. One other receiver I find interesting. People might think I'm crazy, but Rashard Higgins, we last saw with Cleveland. He's only 25 years old. It seems like he fell out of favor with the coaching staff, and certainly fell down the depth chart with the addition of Odell Beckham, and obviously already having a guy like Landry. But he's a big guy. He's a guy that we saw hurt the Ravens in past games, and maybe a guy with a fresh new scenery. Maybe he can kind of turn it back around and get back to what he was doing. Remember in 2018, he had over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't know, just a thought of a guy who I know they could get on the cheap. These are just guys that I know we can bring on the cheap and maybe get some production out of them.
Right. I agree with you. I have one other name as well, similar to that when you're talking about bargain shopping. And I know he's got a couple red flags, if you will, but I saw him play in college, and so maybe I have a little bit of bias towards him. But Ziggy Ansah, originally drafted by the Detroit Lions, went to BYU. I realize he's 31. Last year he played with the Seahawks. Only had 2.5 sacks, but he was dealing with an injury, and that was his first year off of that shoulder injury.
Yeah, so probably couldn't work out.
Right, and so I just want to paint a picture for people that don't know Ziggy other than what they see on ESPN. So Ziggy Ansah went to BYU on a track scholarship from Nigeria, from Africa. Was going to lose his track scholarship his sophomore year, so he wanted to continue in college, couldn't afford college, so he wanted to try out for another team. So he was going to try out for the basketball team. So he's in the weight room working out. Bronco Mendenhall, the head coach of BYU Cougars, walks in the weight room, and he's like, "Why have I never seen you before?" He's like, "Well, I'm Ezekiel Ansah, like, nice to meet you." And he's like, "Okay, well, what are you doing?" Just talking to him, getting to know him, whatever. He's like, "Well, I'm going to lose my track scholarship. I'm trying out for the basketball team because if not, I can't afford college." Anybody that's athletic enough to even think about trying out for another D1 team is just a rare, in rare air to begin with. So coach takes him under his wing, says, "Let's run some drills, blah, blah." Anyway, he ends up being, an All-American, if I'm not mistaken, his last year in college, and then he kills it in the combine based on his speed, athleticism, and ends up being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. So he's 31, but he's only been playing football since his sophomore, junior year in college, whatever, based on like eligibility is like 2.5 year in college. Yeah. So I still think we could get him on a flyer and be opposite Judon. I know we also talked about Clay Matthews, but I think it's another name that's going under the radar that could be a really good fit for Baltimore.
Yeah, interesting guy. I think you're right. If he's healthy, he can be a problem. I wonder if I've always been curious if his age is accurate. I mean, hey, you got to put that out there. You just don't know if he's got a face of a 45-year-old. But other than that, if he was healthy, he would certainly bring some value to the team. But that's a big question if he's healthy, because he hasn't been the last couple of years. You mentioned the shoulder injury, but he also had a lower body injury last season, which kept him out quite some time. So there's still a lot of names out there. Obviously, a lot of the big fish are gone, but it's going to be interesting to see where some of these guys fall. Do you have any other names you wanted to touch on?
No, man, that's all I got. I think names worthy of noting on such an exclusive show. I mean, you got to be some sort of a player to to get on our radar. So
yeah, just tell Brashard Perriman that. But anyway, that's it for this one. We'll catch you next time. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, hit the little bell if you want some notifications, and keep listening. We'll keep talking. See you.